afternoon and a very warm welcome into this episode 17 of the HuddleUK podcast. We've only got two divisions to go for our roundups, and today is the penultimate one, the NFC North. It is a fiery episode. For those of you who've seen the clip going around on our social media channels this week, you'll know that there's no love lost between these teams, the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Bears, of course. Long-standing historical rivalries, and it's going to be a great episode. I'm glad that you've tuned in, and just as we do at the start of each episode, a bit of a plug for the website. Please make sure to go over to HuddleUK.com to check out all the online content. We've got some great stuff going up. And as we put on the website and on our social medias this week, we are still looking for a Lions writer. So we've got a special guest representing Detroit here today. But we are still looking for a Lions writer, and we're still looking for a Giants writer as well. So if you fancy lending your hand to writing, joining the team, a nice little community here at HuddleUK, let us know. Get in touch on the email address admin@HuddleUK.com. Also, just a forewarning in case anything has cropped up in the last week. We've recorded this episode a week in advance. I'm away for the week that this podcast comes out. So if anything NFC North has happened between Monday and Friday ahead of this episode, it won't be talked about. Unfortunately, fingers crossed that isn't the case. But yes, if there is any news that it sounds a bit strange that we've omitted from the conversation, that would be why. If you're listening or watching over on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to HuddleUK. If you, as I said, go follow all the online content and all the social media channels as well. They're at Join the Huddle UK. Enough ramblings from me. As I said, a really fiery episode today. People who are very happy to throw shots at the other teams. It makes for a real good, fun chat. With today's episode being so fiery, we thought we'd mix it up a little bit. You know, we normally start with the team that finished last, but we're going to mix up the order today, and we're going to start with our special guests. Joining us this week, I'm delighted to say that Antony from Roar of the Lions is here. That's at ROTL_UK on Twitter. Almost 5,000 followers, a properly great British NFL podcast. Antony, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, thanks. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate the opportunity here. And hey, you know, sometimes it's good to get the cream of the crop first. That's what you want. Draw people in with the good stuff, and then they can stay for the rest afterwards.
It really has been good stuff, hasn't it? I mean, after years and years, I think it was 1993, you won the division, and then it was only 2023 then was the next time. So you've had to wait patiently, but these last 2 years have been, I mean, no Super Bowl, obviously, but some of the football on display has been fantastic.
Absolutely. I had a full head of hair the last time we were good before this. It was absolutely nuts. But watching the maturation of this team over the last, we're heading into year 5 with Dan Campbell now, has been something to behold. Like when he and Brad Holmes came into this franchise and took it over, we were the worst team in the league. Like, by far, we were not even going to try and take that over. And this thing, as they said when they came in, had to be rebuilt from the ground up, demolished brick by brick, and then you start from scratch. And as they say, over the last 5 years, it's been tough. That first year was really difficult, 3 wins near the end. And then the second year, you start to see the light a little bit. Missed out on the playoffs by 1 game. We got an absolute spanking by Carolina, which kind of showed us what our ceiling was that year. But then you go into year 3 and you start to see the process come together. A young core bought in through the draft, more sensible free agent acquisitions, and more importantly, a culture implementation here where this team just plays unbelievably tough, and its players play, beyond the sum of their parts sometimes. And it was that magical run that we were able to have, which was great. The first playoff wins were just absolutely tremendous. I remember being up at stupid o'clock in the morning here, celebrating it and like getting complaints from neighbours. I don't care. But it was great. And then last year as well, yeah, we didn't go on and win it, but it's again, I look towards the maturation of the team, where it's going. Our expectations, our goals are changing now, who we were and who we are now. It takes a little bit of time to adapt to becoming a serious challenger. With that target on your back, you go from being the hunter to being the hunted. So it's been tough, but we won 15 games. Number 1 seed for the first time ever. So every year we're making progress forward, and we've yet to regress at this point, which is why I'm very hopeful. So yeah, it's been great to watch a lot of winning football with a team who, we've all grown up and invested in since the moment they got here.
You said before we started recording that you've been doing the podcast for almost 5 years. Is your podcast and Dan Campbell aligned? Was it sort of a similar time that they both started?
Dan Campbell started in year two, so we got the last year of Matt Patricia, which was fun. Probably good for us actually, because we were no one was watching us. We were able to get all the shouty, sweary stuff out the way and the frustrations and all that. And it wasn't very pleasant listening, to be fair, that last year. But we feel like it is. We've been here for the whole 10 years. I say we've watched it from day one. We've been able to watch this thing grow, and we feel intimately connected with it and all. So yeah, it's been tremendous. We love Dan, we love Brad, we love where this team's going, and everyone has setbacks, but we're ready. We go again, and more than any other team in this league, we know they will be ready to go again.
You mentioned in the first answer the word culture. I think it's so everyone knows having a good culture is great. This is no secret, but I think it is something that is underappreciated or undervalued in sport. I'm a Chargers fan myself, and the culture in the locker room last year was not something I've seen from a Chargers team for ages. And as you said, I think they played above the sum of their parts last season. Well, I would imagine will do the same this season. Dan Campbell is so great for that, isn't he? As a leader and a motivator.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing that people don't overlook with him, he's obviously played in Detroit in the bad years. He was a player. He understands the city. He understands what foundation it's built on. He understands what the fans will buy into. They want gritty, tough, blue collar football where you're going to run the ball down people's throats, where you're going to play tough. And that's why the fans have brought into it so much. This team is built off how it fights. I mean, we got a lot of great players on this team. We got a lot of great playmakers, but at the end of the day, we will simply outlast you. We will fight harder than you. We turned the ball over 5 times to the Texans on the road last year, who were a playoff team. We still found a way to beat you. We kept getting the ball back. We kept fighting where a lot of teams would have fallen off. So it's his biggest asset. He has tapped into the well in the city and what it is all about, and that collective support behind him. It's what makes it so dangerous. You see the away followings, we take over stadiums, the noise, especially at Ford Field as well. That is part of what makes this team so dangerous, as well as them being insanely talented as well. So Dan just gets it. Brad gets it as well, and we full faith in him that this thing's going to go all the way.
While I completely agree with you and having Brad and Dan on the same page is great, the I guess negative in the last few months is, of course, you had this great coaching unit last season with Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, who understandably were headhunted for head coach roles. Ben Johnson obviously now at the Bears, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this episode, and Aaron Glenn with the Jets. In their place come in John Morton, offensive coordinator, and Kelvin Shepherd. Do you have any concerns or fears about them going into their first year in the role? Or do you think, because the core of the team is still there, Dan Campbell's still there, that it's more, as long as they keep the same philosophy, it shouldn't be too dramatic a change from last year into this season?
See, I've got faith in this team that they're going to be able to overcome this. And again, this goes back to, you talk about the coaching staff they put together. We had to put a brand new coaching staff in. When Dan Campbell first came here, it's pretty much all new. He kept 2 coaches. He kept Hank Fraley, our offensive line coach, one of the best in the league. He kept Ben Johnson. Obviously, he's gone on to be one of the best in the league. He is a very good evaluator of staff and getting the right people in, and he's not afraid to when he makes a mistake early. That first year we fired Anthony Lynn halfway through the season. Dan himself took over play calling. He got better. If he makes a mistake, he knows it. But generally, they're very good at identifying the right people to come into their system. And it's not about the coordinators so much having their say about what goes on. Dan has his plan that he wants. This is the brand of football they want to play. They are there to make that happen on the field, not necessarily the head coach is, relying on what they do. And bringing the guys in, start with Kelvin Shepherd first. He was one of the first hires we made here. Like, he's worked his way through. He's been our linebackers coach. He's had immense success with our linebackers, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Malcolm Rodriguez are the day 3 picks in the drafts. He has made some, out of all the position coaches, he's probably been the best, and he's been groomed to take over this system. He knows this team inside out. He knows the players inside out. He has their respect. Yes, he is a first-time coordinator, but in terms of continuity and how that's going to go, I've got no worries whatsoever. And Kelvin's like Dan in a way. I wrote a tweet years ago. I said, there's 2 people I'd run through a wall for in this life, and that is Dan and Kelvin. Like, he is built of that mold. John Morton has been here before. He was part of the initial crossover team when Antony Lynn went. He helped bring in some of the offense that would go on to become Ben Johnson's signature there. And I know he's had some bad stints elsewhere, but look at that Jets team he had, the players he had at his availability. I think he got a little bit of a hard graft there. And at the end of the day, he's still got the same players Ben has here. And when people say we're going to suffer because of the lack of coordinators, I almost think that's a bit insulting towards our players as well, saying that they're only good because the guy in charge of them, the guy calling the plays, is making that. Like, our core of our offense is there, pretty much all of it. It's the same playmakers. We've got the best pair of running backs in the league. We've got one of the best receivers. We've got a great offensive line, even losing Frank. So between that, the experience we've got, the fact that these guys have been around the system, and the fact that at the top level it is Dan Campbell, football, I'm not too concerned. It may be a bedding in time, but as far as that goes, no, I've no concerns whatsoever.
You mentioned Frank Ragnow, who's of course retired this offseason. That will be a blow and a loss for sure. The trenches, as people like to say, was the focus of the draft for the Lions. It was Tyreek Williams, defensive tackle, first round, and then offensive lineman Tate Ratledge in the second round. On the draft picks, are you pleased with what the focus was? You agree that I think defensive edge was the one place where maybe it came a bit later than Lions fans were predicting.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I prerequisite this by saying I trust Brad implicitly with his draft picks. He knows what he's doing. He's earned the trust of us all for it. Me, I'm a big draft nerd. I do college football all year long. I fall in love with a load of guys, and when we don't pick them, I get upset. That's just how the thing works. But I was very much in the defensive end camp. I really did want one, but at the same point, we did need a defensive tackle as well. Aleem McNeil, he's not going to be healthy till about December from his ACL. Obviously, other guys we've had in there, Levi Onwuzurike, that he's had his injury problems, so we need depth in that room. And one of the things we do best is stop the run. So we've got to have a good full arsenal of DTs to be able to rotate in and out, because that's how we work as the defense. Stop the run first, gives us chance to get home. So I'm not surprised. And then go into the offensive line. Of course, we were going to need to anyhow without Frank retiring. Obviously, Kevin Zeitler, we let go. And we were hoping, obviously, it'd just be one or two rookies we were bedding into the line this year, not potentially three. But, that's the brand of football we built on. It's trenches, trenches, trenches. So, we're always going to go at it. It was time to reinvest in it again. So I'm not upset that we did it that way. Obviously, I'd have liked an end quicker, but I still feel we're probably going to bring another guy in at this point. Probably Zadarius Smith will bring him back. So with that and the rotation, we should be all right. But yeah, in terms of the draft, I never have qualms for what Brad does. They work, whether it takes 1 year or whether it takes 4 years. He's just got an eye for talent, which is second to maybe Howie Roseman, and that's it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. It's going to be good. Just we're going towards that Super Bowl now. Every year just feels like we're a little bit closer. I can't wait to see them. We've got 4 preseason games, the Hall of Fame game. We get to see them early, so yeah, we'll see what they're about.
I mean, we haven't mentioned so many of the names: Jameer Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporte. You've alluded to all of them, and as you said, a lot of them had brilliant rookie years. Sam Laporte in particular. If Brock Bowers didn't do what Brock Bowers did last season, Sam Laporte's season would have been considered one of the best tight end rookie seasons around. I think Brock Bowers blew everyone out of the water last year for the Raiders. How do you think the team stacks up on the whole going into next season? Obviously, you've won the division now 2 years in a row. Last season, obviously, you had the bye for being the first seeds, but lost to Washington then in the divisional round of the playoffs. Well, I guess you have to be aiming further this year. That's the only issue that comes with success, isn't it? That every year you want to be improving on that. And if you don't make the NFC Championship game this season, do you think that would be classed as a bad season?
For me, it would be, and this is personally for me, because there's two schools of thought when it comes to Super Bowl. Some people like a big long window that can be open for 10 years where you don't quite keep going for it, but you're there or thereabouts. You end up like the Ravens and the Bills who always play bridesmaids. I hate being that. I don't want to be that. I'd rather have a few good years and try and go for it. I do think they need to get back to the championship game this year. You need to show, first and foremost, that you do belong in those upper echelons, because at the end of the day, no matter all the great stuff we've done, we've got there once. if we don't get back there again this year, then it looks like a little blip rather than a real thing. But for me, I'm quietly confident we can, and this goes down to the mental makeup of the team. So as mentioned, I've watched this team from year one. I've watched them grow with their one mindset and how they play football, and every time they encounter a challenge, they respond and they grow from it, whether it be year one where we were getting battered every week, but we won 3 of our last 6 games. They still show fight to the end of the season. Second year, just missed out in the playoffs. Last week of the season, we got absolutely trounced by the Carolina Panthers. And, that was the first real game we played under this regime where we played with any pressure whatsoever. And it told. We'd not been in high pressure situations. And they learned from that. And then we came back the next year. We started off strong, which traditionally we'd not done. We worked our way through the season all the way to the NFC Championship game, and you came up short, and mentally that's very tough to process. And we come back to last year, 15 wins, 1 seed. They didn't let it affect them. They get to the playoffs again, and then the defeat to Washington. Right, for me, this is where I'm not. It was obviously we hated that, but I was watching that Washington team when they came in, and I remember saying the week before, like, where all their fans were like, "Oh, bring on Detroit, we don't care." And I looked at them and I thought, that was us last year. Like, this team who everyone had written off, nobody cared about, and a team who was just like, we got nothing to lose, and we're going to go and play our absolute asses off, and we're going to, we're going to shock everybody, as we did the year before. And they came and did that to us. And for me, this is where the mentality with our team needs to change. That was the first year we were favourites. We were at home. We were expected to win in this high-pressure environment. The year before, we were the underdogs when we got to the NFC Championship game. People did not expect us to. There's a difference between when you're chasing and you're being chased. And last year was the first real time we'd been chased in that high leverage situation, and it got to us, and we made some mistakes, and yes, we had injuries like that, but Dan is right. When you've got to keep on going, he makes no excuses for these. So now that the team has been through that and they understand what's required of them, the level of pressure, I think now they'll go into this year being able to handle it better. This is a team that has not lost 2 games in a row for over 2 years now, because they learn from their mistakes quick and they come back stronger. And now I feel going into this year, they understand that, they are at the top and people are going to shoot at them, and it's up to us to deal with that pressure. So, for me, the next step for them is to get back to that Super Bowl in that direction. And I think they can. And as I say, that is 5 years of me seeing this team and how it mentally rebounds from disappointments every single time without fail. They do.
Just before you go, season starts with 2 divisional games against the Packers and the Bears, of course, 2 teams that we'll be speaking to very shortly. And then you do a trip around the AFC North against the Ravens, the Browns, and the Bengals. It's not the easiest start to a season. What is your message to the rest of the NFC North? Obviously, you fancy yourselves to win the division again. Who do you think are the team that will cause you the biggest threat this year?
I mean, it's tough. At the end of the day, as much as I'd love to rag on them all, rightly so, like, the Vikings last year without their quarterback, you bring Sam Darnold in, they managed to win a lot of games, played us close. The Bears always play us tough, despite all the mouthing off they do. And the Packers can be a decent team, and the Packers are they have history of winning. They've got a lot of experience on that team. I feel all 3 of them are threats on their day. There's no easy conference games whatsoever. So, I don't look at any single one of them and go, I think they're the real danger. I think just as a whole, they can all beat us if they want to. But for me, it is a tough start to the season. You're right. We need to start strong, because a lot of those AFC North ones are road games. I think the Ravens is a road game. I think the Bengals is a road game as well. And that's after 2 early doors. That's why I like us having the 4 preseason games. I think we need to play our starters more. I think we need to just get them ready, because that first month last year, they were a bit, I mean, they played well, but they just looked a bit jaded. If you get behind the 8 ball, if you go to 2-4, 2-5, suddenly your season can be over quick. The pressure gets at you. So I need a fast start. But if I'm, putting a message out there, I'm saying, you've seen us these last 4 years now. Like, you've seen us with our backs up against the wall, and you have seen us hit back. If you think because we've lost our coordinators, if you think because Frank's retired, if you think now there's an opportunity and you're just going to be able to knock us off the pedestal and we're going to fall by the wayside, then more fool you, because you've seen us not fall to that sort of pressure. We've still got Dan. More importantly, we've still got the culture. We've still got the players, and we're healthy now for the most part. I think we've got 2 players who are going to be on IR going on to the season now, not 16 or 20 or however many to end the year there. We're still the standard in this division. One of you come in and beat us up, because right now we've been laying the smackdown on each and every one of you the last 3 years now. 3 wins in a row at Lambeau, beating the Bears, swept them the last 2 years twice now. Like, prove that you're better than us. We're the standard, and we'll stay the standard until otherwise.
Fighting talk. I love it. Antony, thank you very much for joining us and representing the Lions. Of course, as I mentioned right at the top, Antony is part of Roar of the Lions UK. Make sure you go check out their blog, their podcast. They've got loads of stuff going on out on Twitter. It's at at ROTL_UK. And do you do live shows as well, I believe?
Yes, we do. So we're live on Mondays with our main Detroit Lions podcast. Me and another guy front a college football podcast on Wednesdays. So we talk college ball. And then we're usually live during the games, during the season, and we do other little B shows here. So yeah, we're live several times during the week. So drop by and say hi if you want. Even if you're not a Lions fan, the UK podcast community will stick together as one. So
very nice touching words. Antony, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to move on now with the rest of the NFC North and the underdogs that are going to be fighting to beat the Lions. Of course, the team that finished second, it all went down to the last game of the regular season. It was the Minnesota Vikings, the resurgent Minnesota Vikings last season with Sam Darnold, an unexpected hero at quarterback. Joining us now to talk all things Vikings is the Huddle UK's Vikings writer, James Paterson. James, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, very, very well, very warm, as we were just saying before we started. It's been this episode. If you're listening to this on the Saturday that it comes out, we're recording this quite a bit in advance because I'm away that week. So you'll remember the very hot day about 10 days ago. That is when this is being recorded. Sweltering heat across the UK. But yeah, the Vikings were on swelteringly hot form for most of last season. As I said, Sam Darnold proved he could be a very competent quarterback in the NFL, but it all came crashing down in week 18, didn't it?
I think, yeah, we had a few issues all throughout the season with Darnold, and they all sort of came to a head in that week 18 matchup where the division was on the line, the bye was on the line, and once again against the Lions, we had our run over them for a long time, but recently it's been the other way around and they've had the run over us. So a little bit of a tricky end to the season, and then I think the real disappointment was the display against the Rams in the playoffs, because we didn't do all of the things that we've been doing throughout the regular season, and it's kind of bizarre. We only lost to 2 teams in the entirety of the 2024 season. We lost to the Lions twice and the Rams twice,
and they were they both in back-to-back weeks as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's spot on. So those 2-week blocks really hindered us. It wasn't mistake-free football for the 14 wins that we did get. So, the signs were there that we maybe wouldn't have it our own way in the playoffs. But I think the biggest holes in the team have been addressed. So hopefully, obviously, Darnold going is going to be it might be a big problem. We don't know what we've got with JJ McCarthy. That's the beauty and the mystery of getting drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, we will get to JJ McCarthy in a minute because I'm excited to talk about him. I just want to just briefly, because as you said, you lost to the Rams then in the playoffs. The offensive line really, Darnold wasn't perfect for the season, but the offensive line was and has been, particularly the interior part of it, the massive focus this offseason. The Vikings drafted Donovan Jackson late in the first round of the draft. They were given offers to trade down, didn't want it. They wanted their guy. They also have a new center in Ryan Kelly, new right guard in Will Fries. This has been a very focused, deliberate offseason, hasn't it, to fix what was the major hole. I can't remember. I think it maybe was 9 sacks against the Rams in that playoff game.
It was, yeah.
Was it 9? Yeah, I thought you might remember that.
Which is the record for a playoff game.
Was it?
Yeah, that is the record number of sacks taken by a QB in a playoff game. So, not a nice record to have.
So it needed work then, that offensive line.
I think the really interesting one is because obviously Christian Darrisaw went down, and he is like the he's the best player on that O-line. Like Brian O'Neill's very good as well, but Darisaw is like the standout at left tackle. And when he got injured, Cam Robinson, we got from the Jaguars, he was actually serviceable. Like he didn't really let us down. He did a decent job. But the left guard, Blake Brandell, had been pretty good when playing next to Darisaw. His form really did nosedive when he was put with Robinson. So I thought once we'd got Fries and Kelly in the building, and with Darisaw coming back, left guard, they might have thought, well, Brandell did well before, and we've upgraded the centre. He's got his left tackle coming back next to him. But then to actually take Donovan Jackson, like you say, with pick 24, when you see the haul that I can't remember who it was that traded at 25 with the Giants, but it was a decent haul that they got for it. And you've got to imagine we'd have got that same offer. So they must have been really high on Donovan Jackson and seen that left guard spot as a real need.
Yeah, because there was a couple of trades late in that round as well, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It was the Giants were the next pick,
Yeah.
and then the Falcons traded up for the pick after that from Houston and the Rams. So, as you said, there definitely would have been offers on the table for the Vikings. So interesting. I quite like it when teams are strong-willed and they go after their guy. They're just sort of the decisions they're make and break sort of ones, aren't they? For general
Yeah.
managers, if you're so high on someone. But that's I think they've made the right moves here in this offseason to address that offensive line, whose job it's going to be to protect JJ McCarthy. So let's talk JJ. There was a lot of excitement when he was drafted, obviously last April
Yeah.
or May, whatever month it
Yeah.
was. Then the injury in preseason, obviously he's going to miss his rookie season. I know he's going into a second year, but you've basically got a rookie quarterback here this year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like if HuddleUK was running this time last year, I'd have asked you this question, which seems silly for a player who's going in second year. But what was it you liked about him when he was drafted? What
I think
aspects of games you like, and do you have confidence in him, but behind this new beefed up O line, that he can at least keep the Vikings competitive this year?
I think the thing that I like the most about him is he's a winner. You look at his record, and that Michigan team, the argument was that anyone could play quarterback for that team. But if you look at what Harbaugh has said about him since, he was really high on him, and he's got the mobility. He maybe doesn't have like a bullet arm in the way that like a Darnold does, but the arm strength is there. He's got the touch, he's got the poise. He seems to be incredibly level-headed, and I think that sort of composure in the pocket is what takes somebody like a Brock Purdy, who is at college was basically a game manager, but he's got that composure that translates to the next level that some players don't. And I think that is what I've seen from McCarthy. I mean, you don't know, because we've seen one preseason game, and unfortunately he did his meniscus, and that was that. So it's going to be interesting. I think that first preseason game this year we'll get a bit more of an insight as to how much he's developed, because I think he did throw a pick in the preseason game last year, but it wasn't necessarily on him. And that's going to happen with, like you said, what is essentially a rookie quarterback.
Do you think he's going to get much action in preseason then?
I think in the first game, I think they'll give him the first half of the first game. That tends to be what we've done with O'Connell in the past. So we'll see. I think he needs a bit more time to build up that chemistry with the likes of Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, Felton, who's been drafted. So yeah, we'll see. It is a complete mystery, and as a Vikings fan, it's quite rare to be in this position, because we've tended to pick up quarterbacks rather than drafting them ourselves. There was Teddy Bridgewater, obviously, and that the unfortunate injury that he got, the horrific injury. He never really came back to the same level. So this is the first time where we can really say this is one of our own. We've drafted him. We're going to develop him, and I think he's got every tool around him to succeed. Like it's not just the retooled offensive line. It's the coach who knows how to get the best out of his quarterbacks. Like you look at his record with the likes of Darnold and Cousins and even Josh Dobbs, and how he's got the best out of them. People play their best football under him. So McCarthy's got incredible talent at receiver. I mean, you could argue the Bengals with Chase and Higgins, but I think after that, I think the best 1-2 punch is Jefferson and Addison.
You've teed me up perfectly for the next sort of 3 topics that I wanted to talk to you about, which is perfect. I don't know which one to go to first. Let's go with Justin Jefferson. Is he the best wide receiver in football?
In my opinion, 100%. I think Jamar Chase is probably slightly better after the catch than him, but I think that's the only area where he'd have sort of scope to beat him. I think Jefferson is running routes, contested catches, getting separation. He is just incredible. And you look at the numbers he puts up, the consistency, and he just doesn't drop it. Like, he's had a couple, but he's so consistent at just bringing that ball in. And quarterbacks trust him. They know that if they put it somewhere around him, he's going to go and get it.
I go back to that. The game that I always stand out to me with Justin Jefferson. He's had many, many very good games, but the absolutely chaotic Bills-Vikings game a couple of years
That's
ago.
one of my favorite games of all time, because I think there was a minute 40 left on the clock, 4th and 18, and Cousins just slings it, and there is no way Jefferson should have come down with that
There's
ball.
no right to catch that
Yeah,
ball.
and I think then to go on and win the game in the fashion we did in overtime, that was a really fun season, and I think we I can't remember the exact record that season, but we won a lot of games and got to the playoffs again. But last year did feel a bit different. I think we were sort of grinding out and fluking results in that season under Cousins, whereas last year with Darnold, it felt like, particularly with the defense getting the turnovers, making stops, it was complementary football, and we were actually earning those close wins, those 14 wins. We did earn them in the way that maybe we didn't in I think it was the 12-win season with Cousins in Kevin O'Connell's first year in charge.
I know you, particularly on the topic of the defense, were enjoying the celebrations last year. It was one thing that you wrote for the HuddleUK website,
Yeah,
ranking them.
it's disappointing that Bynum's gone. I wish him well at the Colts, because he was a very good servant for us. You draft a guy in the 4th round and you get 4 years out of him as a solid starter. You can't really complain. And good for him going away and getting that massive contract with Indy.
I thought you might be slightly upset when I saw that, because I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, we've still got Josh Metellus, and I think Theo Jackson is in line to be just next man up at safety, and he looks a really good player. When he was asked to fill in last season, at various points he did really well, and there wasn't really any talk of drafting or signing a safety in free agency, because they were so confident in him and his ability to step up straight away.
The stories that you've written most recently are about JJ McCarthy. The first one was called The Dawn of a New Era. By the time this episode comes out, I know the second one that you've written, which has got the headline Protecting JJ McCarthy, that one will already be live and over on the HuddleUK website, so make sure to go read that. In the first one, correct me if I'm wrong, but you called Kevin O'Connell the quarterback whisperer for what he's done in the past with different quarterbacks. That must give you, not only does JJ McCarthy have the best wide receiver in football, arguably, you could probably toss a coin between JJ and Jamar Chase, but one of the best head coaches in terms of getting the best from his players. I think people would probably say your Andy Reid's are better head coaches, but in terms of getting the best out of the talent there, Kevin O'Connell's system, he always adapts it to his quarterback, doesn't he?
Exactly. I think that's the key thing. With Cousins, it was all bootlegs and play action. Josh Dobbs came in after a week, and suddenly we had a quarterback running game, which was not something that had ever been installed with Kirk Cousins. And then last year with Sam Darnold, we took the most deep shots out of any team in the league, because they trusted Darnold to go long and be accurate with the ball. So they will run it around McCarthy's strengths, and I think that's probably in the short term going to be quite quick outs, maybe some option plays, because he's got good mobility, McCarthy, and I want him to protect himself. Like, that's a key thing, because you don't want your quarterback to go down again, having already suffered one quite serious injury in his rookie season. And I'm not sure I'm that confident in the recently acquired Sam Howell to come in and be a solid backup. But I think if McCarthy can stay fit, stay healthy, get the ball out quickly, take what is given to him, will continue to march down the field. And yeah, I think the future is very bright.
My best mate's a Vikings fan. He's been stocking JJ McCarthy rookie cards for months now. So I think he's expecting big things. He keeps calling him the next Tom Brady. We have debates about this on a pretty much daily basis in our WhatsApp group. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to go that far. But as a Harbaugh fan, as a Chargers fan, seeing what they did at Michigan, I agree with you. I think there is a bright future for JJ McCarthy in the right system, and I would trust Kevin O'Connell to get that system right. Looking ahead to next year, or well, this year, but next season, the
Yeah.
Vikings are on the road. They're on the march twice. First
Yes.
game in Dublin against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then the week after they stay this side of the pond. They play the Cleveland Browns. Two winnable games against two AFC North sides. Are you going to get to either of the games yourselves? And are you excited to have the Vikings over here, but not just 1 week, but a fortnight?
Yeah, I did try and get tickets for the Dublin game, but that was carnage. I don't know if you saw. I think when I did log in, I was 700,000 in the queue. At
Oh,
which point, I just thought maybe this is a sign because I've secured my tickets for the Browns game already, so I'll definitely be at that one. I do try and get to whenever they come over. I try to get to it, and I've actually been to a game stateside as well, which was incredible. So I think, like you said, two winnable games. The AFC North, we're probably playing the two weakest teams, I'd argue, uh, from that division because I think we're away with the Bengals and the Ravens. So, oh, sorry, no, we're at home to the Bengals and the Ravens, and our away games, because they are classed as away games, are in probably quite favourable environments because we do tend to represent well when we go to London. And I think the Dublin game, I'd expect there to be a bit more of a Steelers representative than ours, but I think we'll still be turning up in numbers. There'll be a lot of purple there.
a lot of skull, a lot of skull. And the US
Yeah.
Bank Stadium, one of the best atmospheres for sure in the whole NFL. Just to round up chatting Vikings then, I think with any of the teams in this division, the Vikings is the one that could go the most, well, has the most variety, I guess, in ceiling to floor, just because there's so many question marks around JJ McCarthy. There's a lot of change with the Bears, but they're not going to be a double-digit win team, or very unlikely to be. The Vikings, it feels like they can be anything from your 13-win season like last season, all the way down to a 5-win season if it all goes to pot. What do you think is the realistic outcome, and do you think you can get revenge on the Lions for last year?
I think the Lions are going to be an interesting proposition this year because they've lost both of their coordinators. So that might impact them a bit more than they're expecting, I think. I'd say it's probably 1 year too soon for us. I think that the McCarthy plan, it seems to be opening up a 3-year championship window. And I think this year might be a bit too soon, but next year, I think we'd be looking to challenge. So this year, I think if we get to 8, 9 wins, maybe sneak into the wild card, I'd be very happy with that. Um, I think it's all about McCarthy this year. That's what we need to. We need to work out what we've got, work out the best way of helping him succeed. And if he develops well and we win 5 games, I'd almost be happier than him having a bit of a shocking season and us winning 10 games with the defense and maybe a really good rushing game with the addition of Jordan Mason. But so this year for me, all about JJ McCarthy and giving whatever we can do to him to help him succeed.
I think, as I said, I think he's got a bright future, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Vikings can do this season. James, thank you very much for joining us on this episode. As I said, you could go read James's views on JJ McCarthy and, of course, all of the Vikings stuff, the off-season and what's coming up in 2025 over at the HuddleUK website. Now we're going to go to the team that was third. So now moving on to the Green Bay Packers, team that finished 11-6 last season. Most teams that finished 11-6 are fighting for the title of their division. The Packers ended up finishing third with that, which, we'll get into the bones of that now. Joining us to chat Packers is the Huddle UK's Packers writer, Nathan Norris. Nathan, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I know you've got your cheese head off to the side. I won't make you wear it. 11-7, as I said there, last season. On most accounts, that's a really good season, and it still was a good season for the Packers. Made the playoffs, but the season kind of fizzled out towards the end, didn't it?
Yeah, I think the North was unsurprisingly tough. I think that the North, this is how the NFC North should be, in my opinion. But I think we really struggled in those division games, and unfortunately we had some towards the end of the year, which meant that we kind of went to the playoffs on a bit of a whimper. And going up against the Eagles in Philadelphia, you need to be on top form. And like I said, we lost to the Bears for the first time in what felt like about 300 years. The Vikings gave us a real tough test just before that as well. So yeah, it was a good season, I have to say. I think considering Jordan Love went down so early on, at that point I was thinking, okay, here we go. Let's just manage what we can and hope for the best. But to get 11 wins, considering that, I think was actually really good. The disappointing thing was finishing 1-5 in the division, which is not really good enough. And the one we won was a blocked field goal, so we were a fingernail from being 0-6, which is just crazy to think for the Packers.
Because this is such a division, and I've mentioned it a few times already in this episode, where in some divisions you kind of have two teams within the four who feel like rivals. This is really, I think, from the outside looking in, the division where just everyone hates everyone.
I think everyone hates the Packers the most. I think if you ask them who they hate the most, it would be the Packers, just because I think we have been, I'm hesitant to use the word dominant, but we have been pretty good for a good 3 decades now. But yeah, no, I think the Packers Bears rivalry is obviously up there, but I mean, I can't say I like the Lions or Vikings. There was a lot of Packers fans who wanted the Lions to do well after kind of, they struggled for a long time, and then they became quite good, and the Packers fans were happy for them. I was not happy for them at all. I quite liked it when they were fourth, winning one game every year. That was brilliant for me. So
Well, I'm glad you said that, because Antony earlier on from the Roar of the Lions podcast was saying, they've won at Lambeau 3 times. He was talking a bit of smack. So yeah, good, you got fair play, give it back. The bit that he also, to the Packers' credit, said, the Packers, they've got a history of winning, as you've just alluded to there. And I was just looking at the recent sort of season by seasons. I know the Packers haven't won the division since 2021, but they haven't come last in the division since 2005. So even on like a bad season, they're still beating a lot of the other teams in their division in and around them. So I think that's a credit to the Packers. Let's break down then the bit of the off-season, a few of the talking points. I know you've written a couple of stories. I think you've been our most active writer, in fact, over the last month or so, covering all topics, which we absolutely love here at HuddleUK. Let's start with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Because you wrote a story for the website, and the sort of the headline or the question that you were posting is, did he regress in 2024? There were a lot of great numbers in 2023. They were marginally down last season, but, they're fair criticisms, but he wasn't the only issue last year.
no, and I think I said in the article, getting injured and the injury he had on week 1, I think that did make life difficult for him, because we were thankfully had the Colts and the Titans, not to disrespect those teams, but we had Malik Willis against those two, which was probably a good thing, because we got the wins. And then when Love came back against the Vikings, I think they were really keen to have him back. He just didn't look himself. Like his movement was not the same, and like he was kind of, you could see his throwing motion just wasn't right. He couldn't settle his foot. And the first half, the Vikings destroyed us, and he did kind of get into a rhythm in the second half. But I think that was kind of key for him in a few other games as well. Like, I think, remember the Jaguars game, he went out, he didn't look comfortable. There was, I think, even against the Bears, he didn't really look himself. So I think the injury did play a part for Jordan. But I mean, if you have to really criticize the offense, for me, it has to be the receivers, who just have been so inconsistent. I think I've chatted to you before, and you kind of said it feels like Green Bay has like 4 wide receiver twos, and I think, just nail on the head, we haven't found that guy. And I believe we were second only behind the Jets in drop percentage, and that's just not good enough. We need these receivers. A lot of them were, second, third years, so you can forgive him a bit, but I think Dontavion Wicks had 9 drops on the year, which is just like, you can't do that. And I think the fact that we drafted 2 receivers tells the story, really, that this is an area that we really, really have to improve upon.
Yeah, I'm going to get into the draft picks in a moment. Just to stay with Love, I wish I thought about this in advance because I know there would have been something. On the first ever episode of this show, we had on the Broncos writer, Mark, and I played a lovely pun called Bo Nix or No Nix to ask, posit quarterbacks up against his quarterback. I know there's one. Is in love or no love? I can't. I'm not going to be able to think of one off the top of my head. But just to give you some dilemmas then back and forth, if you had to have Jordan Love or Baker Mayfield.
I'm wearing his jersey. I'm gonna go with Jordan Love.
Okay, Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence?
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love or Justin Herbert?
Nah, I'd have to go Herbert, I think.
Okay, you don't have to say that because I'm a Chargers fan,
No,
but
no. Herbert is. I mean that 2020 quarterback class is ridiculous, and Herbert was and is fantastic, a brilliant player. If you asked me right now, and you said you could have Love or Herbert, I feel like I feel like I might get slaughtered for this. I think I probably would take Herbert right
well,
now.
we'll save the Herbert love because in 2 weeks' time we're covering the AFC West. That's the final one of our division by division. We'll save all the Herbert because I'm going to be well over that. I can see all the Chargers merch in my room. I'll try and keep that off the screen for the non-biased part of the podcast. It's going to be all out next week. So the draft then, you did mention the wide receivers. It was the first time, you'll remember the year off the top of your head, but the first time since 2002, was it?
Yeah.
That the Packers drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Matthew Golden was the selection. I'll be perfectly honest, he wasn't one of my favourite prospects in this draft, not even among the wide receivers.
Yeah.
What was your take on him? I don't know if you're a big college football fan, but
I am. Yeah.
you are. So
Yes.
you'll know, better qualified to talk about it than me. I dip my toe into it now and then. Where do you stand on Golden as a player and how he will fit into this group of, as I say, wide receiver twos?
I love him. I absolutely love him. I think Texas, the Longhorns, were probably one of the most fun teams to watch. So Golden was a big part of that. He's just so fun. He always seemed to be free. He was always open. And he's got great hands, and he can do a few other things as well, just because he's so fast. I think he did some returning for them, but I don't imagine we'll have him on returns. But honestly, I was happy. I think when I watched the draft, I couldn't stay up for it, unfortunately, but I watched it back in the morning. When he said, when Mark Murphy announced the pick and he was like, for the first time, I did get excited. I don't think I've ever really been like, yes, over a draft pick, but yeah, I was really happy about it. Just because we need receivers. He is a good receiver. He might be you could probably class him as a wide receiver too, but I think he will end up being number one, or
Yeah,
maybe like a 1.5 when Christian Watson comes back.
Yeah, 'cause that for me is the part of it which I thought was a bit strange. Because Matthew Golden, if you want to sort of rank his skill sets, it's that deep ball, that long ball, which he's brilliant at. I think he
Yeah.
had the most deep touchdowns in the SEC last year. So it's an undeniable skill, and can't bash him for that. But it just feels very Christian Watson and what he can do as well. So when he's fit, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it, and I do. I always hope that these rookies do well. As you've also alluded to, not the only wide receiver taken. Savion Williams was taken in the third round from
Yes.
TCU.
Yes.
And the thing I love about him is he had as many rushing touchdowns as he did receiving touchdowns. He's a real multi-threat. As someone who has that extra tool in his pocket that, Green Bay can exploit and use this season.
Yeah, he's just fun to watch. Like, I would recommend anyone go and watch his college tape, because I think calling him unpolished is probably fair. So he will have some things to work out. I don't imagine he'll see a ton of snaps to begin with, but he's just fun to watch. I think like you said, he's a fun gadget guy. Matt LaFleur has that type of offense where he likes to, do funky things. Matt LaFleur loves an end around, and I think Savion Williams is he's got a lot in his locker that I think the coaches can utilize. And like I said, he's just fun to watch. I wasn't expecting it at all. But I tend to kind of watch a lot of receivers leading up to the draft. And his route running doesn't always look great. He always looks like he's a bit lost, but it kind of works in his favor because no one else seems to know where he is either. And he's very physical, actually, surprisingly physical. So I think he could be a great tool. I think he's going to be one that's probably long term. I think maybe year two or year three, we'll see more of him. But I'm excited to see him play, definitely.
I've just got up the depth chart now. So, what a list of wide receivers this is. Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, now Savion Williams, McCall Hardman, Bo Melton. I didn't even know Cornelius Johnson found another team after he left the Chargers without playing a snap last season. So I'm glad to see, he's after he was drafted by the former Michigan head coach as a Michigan player. I thought that was going to be a seventh round GM, but it didn't transpire to be that way for us. Moving on from the wide receivers, the other hot topic, I think, of the summer, which you've written about for the website, is the tush push. And we talked about this when we had the NFC East episode, and we talked Eagles with the other Nathan who writes for HuddleUK, Nathan Doyle.
Yeah, brilliant.
Obviously, he's a big fan of the tush push.
Yes.
I've been on the record as saying I am as well. I'm along the lines of, if it doesn't break the rules, do it, utilize it. And I think the argument that the Eagles fans use, which I kind of subscribe to, is that if nobody else can replicate it, then it isn't this thing that it's not just like it's not easy. People go, oh, it's it's too simple doing it from a yard every time, but nobody else has seemed to replicate it at the same level that they have. So for me, I'm a fan, but I know you've got your concerns and qualms with it.
Yeah, and I think I really wish the Packers name wasn't against it. I think there was some talk and some articles that came out that the NFL kind of asked the Packers to do it because we don't really have an owner. Our president is about to step down in a few days, so he doesn't care anymore. So I think it was the Packers that were kind of the ones to make the proposal, and but be that as it may, I wish our name wasn't against it, but I have a lot. I feel like I've kind of written a few things recently that are against the Eagles, but it's because I'm just kind of jealous of them. I think they're just doing everything so well. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the tush push. I think if you have a play that guarantees you yards, I don't really think it's in the spirit of the game. I respect that they found something that works so well because, I mean, the Washington playoff game was hilarious where they had was it Frankie Louvu just leaping over,
yeah.
and the referee was like, "I'm just going to give them a score," and that was hilarious. But I do think it's the line we get is, well, learn how to stop it. My concern is when a team does stop it, or if a team does stop it, because they might not. But I think you have to meet the force that the Eagles generate with this equal amount of force, and I just got this horrible gut feeling that when that happens, it's not going to end well. And I've got this really horrible feeling that we'll play the Eagles again next year, and I feel like if something will happen against the Packers, just like fate has written it. But yeah, I credit the Eagles though. It's it's fun and it works for them. They found something that makes them really, really hard to beat. So credit to them, but no, ban it. I think it will get banned eventually anyway. So
I think it will get banned eventually as well. I don't see it lasting forever. I think that's why I was quite pleased that because the vote was close, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 22 teams voted
22,
in
they
favour.
needed 24. Yeah. But as you've put the stats here, just to read it out for people who haven't read that article. So on their first attempts, they have an 81% success rate. And on 9 of the attempts that they failed, they went again. And on 8 of them, they then got it, which is up to 98% completion, whereas the rest of the league was at 74%. So they really just had a knack for it. I think it'll be interesting this year with a changed offensive line to see how well they can continue to do it. And if it starts being as bad as the rest of the league, they might just revert to type and just give it to Saquon Barkley, which,
well, that was one of my arguments. Well, not really an argument, so to speak, but the short yardage situation. You've got one of the best offensive lines in football, and you've got Saquon Barkley. Just run it. He's going to get the. He's going to get the yards. But no credit. I think the Eagles will still run it, and they'll still run it to great success. Jalen Hurts is a machine, and they're strong and tough. So they will keep utilizing. And to be fair, if it was my team, I'd be keep going until they ban it. So fair play to them.
The other really fun story you wrote, we are recording this slightly further in advance. This is going to come out a week today while I am away on holiday. But last week, some 10 days ago, if you're listening on the day this episode comes out, you wrote about the NFL soccer jersey crossovers, which was caused huge debate, which I absolutely love. What I don't love is the Chargers one, and many of the other ones are quite horrific. You've gone through and sort of ranked your 10 favorites, your 10 worst, which I'm sure was a fun exercise to
It
do.
was, yeah, it was fun.
What did you make? What was your view on the Packers one?
I'm a sucker for pinstripes, so straight away I was like, yes. It was like I've got some old West Ham jerseys that have it's like a white shirt with the kind of claret collar and like the pinstripes, and it reminded me of that a bit. So yeah, I absolutely loved the Packers. To be fair, I actually loved quite a lot of them. Um, there was some really kind of just smart, understated ones that had the patterns on them, like the Dolphins one.
The
The Saints
Vikings, I
ones,
think, as
oh,
well.
the runes, the Nordic runes on the Viking ones just looked fantastic. I hate to say that, but it really looked really, really nice. But yeah, I love the Packers one. If I can get it, I will try to. I'm not sure Fanatics will sell it for a cheap, so to
No.
speak. But yeah, there was some really, really nice efforts, and I'm hoping that they will make sale in the UK because I think they'd actually do really, really well in the UK.
I think anything that sparks a bit of conversation like that is always a bit of fun. Just to round up then, as I do with everyone, I always find myself saying hopes and dreams, floors, ceilings, those sort of buzzwords. But 11-7 is, as I said, finishing third with 11-7 is mad, really. Sorry, 11-6. Where do you want the team to get to next season? Obviously, every fan wants their team to get to the Super Bowl, but where's the progress now for the Packers? Is it the divisional round of the playoffs? Are you targeting NFC Championship game? Or do you think sort of another 11-6 season, another sort of playoff run would be good enough?
It has to be Super Bowl. Why are you here if you're not going for the Super Bowl? I know every fan says that, but I think, the Packers were, I think, fifth in offense and sixth in defense. I may have got that the way around in terms of yards. And I think they're capable. Obviously, they have issues in their rosters. Everyone does. But I think now, in Love's third year, I think he needs to, I do think he needs to make a step. I think we've kind of addressed the situation at receiver. I think they all need to take a step. A few of them, like Dobbs and Watson, are in contract years. So I think that is going to push them a bit. Second year in Jeff Hafley's scheme, he did really well. Our defense wasn't always the best with the pass rush, and the cornerback room is looking a little bit shaky, but I think there's definitely a lot of promise there. So I think you have to go for the Super Bowl. I know it's the Green Bay Packers. The expectations are big, and if we can get to the NFC Championship game, and maybe we haven't quite made that step, then I'd probably look back and say, okay, that's we have shown some progress, but really you have to go for the Super Bowl. It's the Green Bay Packers. It's not the we're not the Detroit Lions who hang banners for winning the division. We're the Green Bay Packers. We want to win things.
Oh, I
Sorry.
love it. I love a good shot fired to round it up. No, not just quickly, actually. Who do you think? Do you think the Lions are the biggest threat for winning the division?
Yeah. I think you'll see a very strong NFC North next season. I think the Bears have got better, undoubtedly. Like how well Ben Johnson does as a head coach remains to be seen. I think the Lions, they've lost a couple of pieces on their offensive line. So, and that is their strength. Jared Goff, when he's not pressured, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. When he is pressured, he's one of the worst. So how that hurts them, and losing Johnson, losing was it Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator who left, how that hurts them, it probably do a little bit of damage. I still think they'll be the one to beat. Vikings, I've no idea what to expect from the Vikings. I assume they'll be competitive because they always are, or they always have been under O'Connell. So yeah, I'd say the aim is Detroit. I think we owe Detroit as well. They beat us twice last year, and they let us know it. And credit to them, they won the games. They're a good team, and it'll be nice to get them back and take back the North because it's the Packers and the North is ours.
And so I do love a
Cheers.
good bit of rivalry. It's been great to chat Green Bay Packers. We do have to round up, of course, with the team that finished last, unfortunately, last season, but I think a team that will be on the up this year. We're going to finish off with the Chicago Bears. Joining us to talk about the Bears and hopefully the improvement coming into this season is the HuddleUK's Bears writer, James Cooper. James, how are you?
Very good, thank you. I think we were just discussing beforehand. had a slight prang with my car yesterday, so rather metaphorically, in terms of the Bears season last year, which was a bit of a car crash. I've had my own recently, but luckily the wheels didn't completely come off as we saw last year, I suppose.
Yeah, your car was in a better state than the Bears team was for large patches of last
Yes,
season.
yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the record. It was 4-5 at home. It was just on the road, which the Bears were absolutely horrific. Only one win on the road all season. I mean, there was well documented the drama at the start with the coaching staff. Obviously, Caleb Williams, there was a lot of hype with him when he started. Let's start with Caleb Williams. I think, I'm going just purely off what I see on social media and talking to Bears fans. Most Bears fans, I think, are in the camp of, let's sort of scrap the rookie season. There was enough going wrong for the team that we're not going to place it on the quarterback's fault. And there was enough signs of promise from Williams that moving forward now with a new head coach, which we'll get onto in a minute, that we still believe in him as our quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's been so many players in the history of the NFL who've had that bad first season, and the number of sacks that he had with a better line coming into next season, I think that's going to really improve things. And obviously, as we'll get to later, they have strengthened massively in that line over the offseason.
Johnson is one of the biggest head coaching appointments of this offseason. I think there were loads of teams clamouring for him after his work that he's done at your rivals, Detroit, which we touched upon right at the start of this episode.
Yeah.
You must be really optimistic about what he can bring to the team this season now in 2025.
Yeah, when you look at that Detroit offense, it's one of the most electric offenses in the NFL. So he's got a history of being great with tight ends. So as we've seen in the draft, we've brought in a tight end straight off the bat. So I think anything he can do to obviously get Caleb Williams up and moving and get that kind of positivity back that was going into last season is going to be a massive bonus.
Because the weapons are there, aren't they? Caleb Williams now has arguably as many weapons as any quarterback in that he's got Rome Odunze going into his second year. They've just drafted Luther Burden in the second round, Colston Loveland, and of course DJ Moore's still there.
Yeah, I think the only thing that tempers that, I suppose, is going into last season, it was such an optimistic high, and then straight from the first game, it kind of fell flat, and it was really the defense that pulled us out of that one. So there's optimism, but there's tempered optimism, and we'll see in the first few games of the season whether things are gonna actually change.
I mentioned the running back room there as well. It's DeAndre Swift, who's still back with the side. Roshan Johnson's the backup. The Lions were quite famed under Ben Johnson for their Sonic and Knuckles, their Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. With the greatest respect to Swift and Johnson, that they're not on the same level, are they?
Yeah, I mean, Roshan Johnson, he gets a lot of those goal line opportunities. I think he got the same number of touchdowns last year as Swift, and if you think maybe Swift had a bad season last year, but then you compare the yards and the touchdowns with his last season at Philly, and it's pretty much like for like. So optically, he probably didn't impress as much as you'd have liked him to, but the numbers are still there going into next season.
What might be a concern is the start of the season, which is against the Vikings first week and then Detroit in the second week. Of course, two teams we've already just covered and spoken to. Two teams who were as good. Well, the Vikings, they had some wobbly moments, but the first seed in the whole of the NFC last season, and then of course the Vikings, who were unlucky, that you can debate whether they should have been second seeds or wild cards. That's a debate for another time, but that's a really tough way to open the season for Chicago.
Yeah, when you look at those fixtures on the schedule, I think there was a period last year where we had maybe 4 or 5 divisional games in a row, and for me, I find the games more attractive when you're playing against an opponent that you've not played for a few seasons, so maybe 4 or 5 seasons. The divisional games, obviously, you're playing an opponent who is familiar to you, and you say Detroit and Minnesota have really come into their own the last few seasons, and to have to play them twice, it's obviously not ideal. You've got those games against Green Bay as well, the rivalry games. So it is a hard division in terms of quality, and there is a lot of depth in quality in the division for sure.
You had at least there was the end of the streak against Green Bay last season, which must have been one of the positive moments of the season for you.
Yeah, I think the last game when obviously the result was kind of not really counting towards anything, but I think I started writing for Huddle after the final victory of the season for the Bears, and then every article I wrote was after a defeat up until that final game. So it was good to get the monkey off the back, so to speak. I thought I might have cursed the team at first, but yeah, it's always good to win against the rivals. It's just obviously it didn't count for much in the end, but it was a good bookmark to the end of the season.
Because it had been a long time coming, and on the subject of a long time coming, there's only been one NFC North title since 2010 when he won it, but since then there's only been one. There's only been 2 second places in that time as well. So it has been on sort of a downward path in recent years for the Bears. Do you think you're at the start now? When we spoke to the Lions right at the start of this episode, he was saying that when Dan Campbell came in, they kind of felt like that they were at pretty much rock bottom, but that was the start of where it was going to improve. Do you feel like you're in that sort of position now with the Bears?
I think so. I think everything's very kind of cyclical in the NFL, isn't it? If you wait long enough, then your team will rebuild with the moves that they make in the draft and the higher picks. So yeah, I think there is optimism. There's optimism for every fan at the start of a new season. You can always call on something that you feel is going to give you a boost coming into the season. There'll always be aspects that you can look on and say we can build on this, but maybe after the start of last season, definitely it might be tempered optimism at the moment.
It was, as I said right at the top of this chat, 5-12 last season. What target in your head do you think would make or would quantify a successful season for Chicago in 2025?
I think a successful season for us would be what I would call a Steelers season. So I think they were famous for getting 8-8. Obviously, we've got the extra game now, so anything around that mark, 8 wins, 9 wins, that would be ideal. Probably wouldn't be enough to win the division with the division that we're in, but it would be a springboard for the coming years.
Yeah, it reminded me of when I was speaking to the Giants. We had Aaron Gilbreth on from the Big Blue podcast, and he was talking about the Giants taking a step forward, but because of the division they're in, it's going to be very hard to see any hope of a postseason run this season, won't it?
Yeah, as you say, as we've touched on earlier, there is a lot of strength and depth in this division, and I can't see the Lions dropping off. The Vikings, obviously, they've got JJ McCarthy now. They'll be starting, and I think they're only going to build on last year. And then Green Bay also are always there or thereabouts. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a tight race, and it'll go down to the last few games, and it won't be kind of nothing to play for with 3 or 4 to go. But I think if we did get to 8 wins, that would be classed as a success, definitely.
Which of the other 3 teams do you think is the team that you're most likely to be able to finish above?
I would say Green Bay would be the most likely. Obviously, they're also still in quite a transitional period as well. The other 2 teams seem to have a bit more strength in depth, and have kind of proven over the last 2 or 3 years that they can get to the postseason.
Well, it'd be nice to get one over on Green Bay as well, wouldn't it? If you can finish above them this season. Let me get up the list. When was the last time you did finish above Green Bay in a season. Not to rub salt in any Chicago wounds listening, but it was back in 2018. So you haven't finished above the Packers in about 7 seasons. Maybe 2025 will be the changing point. James, thank you very, very much for joining us. And thank you to all 4 guests on today. Of course, our 3 Huddle UK writers and Antony from Roar of the Lions. It's been great to chat to you all. We've got one more division to go. That will be in 2 weeks' time, my division. I'm not sure if I'll represent the Chargers myself or find someone else. Thank you very much to everyone who's listening. Remember, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating if you're on there. If you're on YouTube, remember to click subscribe. James, thank you very much for joining us. And for everyone listening, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with the AFC West.